Hello everybody, Ellie here for WhoCulture. It's been a hot minute. How are we all doing? Now I want to talk to you about the future of Doctor Who and specifically about season 3. Now there's obviously been a lot of chatter about this whole situation over the last few weeks and quite honestly, quite a bit of misinformation and a lot of wild conclusions being drawn. So what I really want to do is talk about the facts. I think it's important to look at the facts here. So I want to go over exactly what is happening with season 3 as far as we are aware at the moment. I want to establish some context with regards to some of that information. And then at the end, I think what I'll do is cover some of the possibilities of the future of Doctor Who. So let's dive into it, shall we? So a little while ago, Russell T Davies said that there hadn't been any news about a green light for season 3, and he actually doesn't expect that to come now until after the transmission of season 2. Now, nothing has been confirmed yet, but we would expect that season 2 will air at a similar time of year to season 1. So our guess would be spring 2025, meaning that we wouldn't actually get a green light for season 3, if what Russell is saying is true, until maybe June 2025. So as you would expect then, because of this, there's been a lot of conversation about the future of the show and another gap year potentially looming. Also, I keep seeing headlines like Doctor Who cancelled and Ncuti Gat were fired. Now, just quickly, that's all nonsense. You can totally ignore those videos. They're just negative Nellies. So I think what we should probably talk about first is this chatter about a potential gap year. Now, I can totally see why there is concern from people about this happening. I mean, getting the green light in June 2025 would mean a very, very tight turnaround to have a full season of Doctor Who ready to air in spring 2026. Now, this actually would contradict something that Russell T Davies said a few years ago. And I think this is why people are getting more concerned and a little bit annoyed, irate, upset about this, because he promised that there would be no more gap years. So this is the exact thing he said, and it was back in December 2022. The 15th Doctor's first full season will be 8 episodes long with a Christmas special, making it 9 episodes every year. It takes a while to get the Empire in shape, but that's a serious plan. Annual Doctor Who, no gap years, lots of content, on and on. I mean, obviously when you're making promises like that, and it already seems like you might be potentially giving us another off year, you can see why people might be a little frustrated and concerned. I think the biggest issue here is that long waits between seasons of shows can really kill the momentum. And we already went through a really erratic time in terms of scheduling in the Capaldi and Whittaker era. So we already have that kind of trauma in the back of our minds of what it feels like already. Now, on the other hand though, I do feel like there are some reasons why we don't need to be concerned. Even if season 3 isn't greenlit until June 2025, they could still probably comfortably get a full season out in autumn or winter 2026. Now, yes, okay, that would mean that we go more than 12 months without any new Doctor Who, but it would still air within that calendar year, so technically it wouldn't be a gap year. It just wouldn't air at the same time of year, but we could then still have new Doctor Who in the year 2026. Also, let's not forget that it is perfectly normal for a show to get renewed after the first or second episode airs. So if the first 2 episodes of season 2 knock it out of the park and Disney are like, yeah, this is going great, then the season 3 green light could come much earlier than June. It could come right at the beginning of when those episodes air. So that would give them more time to then prepare for season 3. Now, let's not also forget that we have the war between the land and the sea. Now, I don't think Russell necessarily intended for this spin-off to be part of that yearly content. I think what he really wanted was to have full episodes, to have full seasons of Doctor Who, the main show, to air every single year, and then the spin-offs would be an extra thing to add on top of that. But if season 3 isn't ready until late 2026 or even 2027, then we do still have the war between the land and the sea that can fill that gap. So although we might not have new Doctor Who, we technically could still have no gap year in terms of Doctor Who content, in terms of Whoniverse content. Is that cheating slightly? Maybe. but it's better than nothing. Now, the other thing is he might even go down the route of specials in 2026. You know, they might not feel like they can realistically pull together an entire full season, but maybe 3 or 4 hour-long specials throughout the year. That could easily be done. I mean, I'm saying that from the perspective of someone who absolutely does not work in that industry, and it's very easy for me to say that it could easily be done. But I feel like 3 or 4 hour-long specials spread throughout the year is much more achievable than trying to rush through an entire season to be done to air in the space of 8 weeks. You get me? Now, just to circle back to the war between the land and the sea for a second, because I have heard through the grapevine from a source who has known to be reliable with their information in the past, that there's actually a good chance that we won't be seeing the war between the land and the sea in 2025, and that it will actually air in 2026 instead. So that could indicate again that they're using the spin-off as their 2026 content, and the main show then would return for season 3 in 2027. Feels very weird to be talking about the next season of the show. Well, technically it's not, we've still got season 2, but that's so many years away. Also from that very reliable source, they also suggested that the war between the land and the sea will air in a single week, like Torchwood's Children of Earth did, as opposed to spread across several weeks. So that could be an interesting spin on the transmission thing as well. But like I say, this is from a source. They have been reliable in the past, but take everything I'm saying here with a pinch of salt, because we are interpreting the information that we are being given here. So don't come at me if that's not true. Now, I can hear you maybe sighing a little bit of sadness there, and I totally understand it. Only 5 episodes of a Doctor Who less spin-off in 2026, and maybe a special or 2, isn't the ideal scenario. It's not really what we're hoping for. But if that's what ends up happening, then I just hope that maybe all those involved maybe learn from some mistakes that might have been made along this process, and then ensure that in the future we don't get stuck with another gap year that has to quickly be filled with the spin-off as opposed to the season itself. You know, maybe these are just teething problems. It's done differently with the Disney contribution, and maybe in the future they maybe need to think about that if the deal continues to go on. Now, something else that we need to consider in terms of the speed with which season 3 could be released, if and when the green light comes, is that Russell has already started writing season 3, at least in part. So he told Radio Times back in June 2024 this: "I'm working on the 4th script now for season 3. It's not actually commissioned, that's still up in the air, but that's the same for every TV programme. I shouldn't say we're confident because that's asking for a fool, but we're very confident, to be honest, and we'll just keep going." So as of June this year, Russell has already been working on the 4th script for season 3. Now, what this does suggest to me, and again, this hasn't been explicitly confirmed, but it does suggest to me that it's Disney that is holding up the season 3 green light. Now, we have heard rumblings that Disney maybe weren't as happy with the season 1 results and viewing figures, so I'm guessing maybe that's what's causing the delay here. But Russell and Bad Wolf, they are raring to go. They are ready to go as soon as they are given the go-ahead. Now, what this also suggests is that even though Disney might be a little bit concerned, the BBC at least must have given some sort of assurances that there will be a future for Doctor Who. I mean, 4 scripts is a lot of scripts to write if you have no confidence that your show is going to continue. And also, we probably should consider that if scripts have been written and there is a plan in the works, then it's probably not just the writing that is already being planned out. I mean, I would assume that the entire thing is kind of pretty much mapped out. He knows where the story's going. He knows where he wants to go with it. So he said back in November 2023 in an issue of SFX magazine, so this is, almost a year ago now, he said, "I'm planning season 3 now, and there's plans for season 4. So again, on Russell's side at least, he's raring to go. He's full steam ahead. Let's get going. I've got the ideas up here in the old noggin. He did also state that he was hoping to start shooting season 3 in early 2025, but looking at what's happening at the moment, that doesn't seem likely now. But on the plus side, when that green light does come, they're not going to be twiddling their thumbs and suddenly thinking, right, what are we going to do? They've got it. It's just waiting for that go-ahead. Now, just forgive me for a second while I just have my tinfoil hat moment, but if anyone noticed, very recently, Russell T Davies actually posted a photo of him on the TARDIS set at Bad Wolf Studios. So who knows, maybe season 3 has been greenlit, and this entire video will be totally out of date by the time it airs, which, let's be honest, we do have precedent for. Oh, it's triggering. So, what is actually going to be happening next? I think when you really boil it all down, there's 2 pathways here. Scenario 1, pretty self-explanatory. Disney and the BBC continue with their deal. They'll probably agree to do another 2 seasons, just like they did this time round, perhaps maybe another spin-off or 2, and then when those 2 years are up, they'll reassess the situation and decide what happens from there. Scenario number 2 is that Disney and the BBC part ways. But, contrary to what certain corners of the internet might have you believe, that does not automatically mean that Doctor Who is over. It's cancelled, no Disney, no Doctor Who. That is not the case. The BBC is still in full control of this show, and they are well within their rights to just continue between themselves and Bad Wolf Studios to make the show on their own. Or equally, they are free to go and talk to different streaming services if that becomes necessary. Now here's an important thing to remember as well. When Doctor Who was being shopped around before the Disney deal was made, it wasn't just Disney that the BBC spoke to. In fact, according to Russell T Davies, they spoke to every single streamer in the world. And all of them were interested, apparently, as you'd expect. I mean, it's Doctor Who, for crying out loud. Russell did tell SFX magazine, again in that November 2023 edition, it could have been Netflix, it could have been Amazon, it could have been anyone. You could say any name there that we went to. It's our job to go to every single streamer in the world. All of them were very interested. So again, if Disney decides to part ways, then the BBC can just do exactly the same thing that they did before and approach those other streamers that they went to the first time around and go, hey look, here's this wonderful show, what do you reckon? I mean, I dare say Netflix would love to have Doctor Who on their service. I mean, the modern era of the show used to be on Netflix, at least in the UK anyway, and it left in January 2021. So there is a pre-existing relationship with Netflix and Doctor Who. And actually, if you look at what has been so successful on Netflix this year, it's the British-made shows that are proving to be the most popular content for 2024. So I think they jump at the chance to have Doctor Who on their service and be able to release new episodes as well as having the existing ones. I would be fearful for Netflix in particular to then drop all the episodes in one go, because they do have a tendency to do that, which I'm not a big fan of. In some shows I'm like, yes, I want to binge that. Some shows I'm like, if you dump them all down at once, then the hype is going to disappear very quickly. And also Netflix does have so much content that there is a worry that Doctor Who would just get lost in the fold. But anyway, this is just a hypothetical upon a hypothetical, so let's not dwell on that too much. I mean, overall, I think Disney probably is the best fit for Doctor Who. I mean, when you look at the kind of the global reach and then also the kind of family-oriented brand recognition, it is the best place for Doctor Who to be, in my opinion, amongst all the other streaming services. But it's not like there is a shortage of options if it does come to it. And like I said, we don't necessarily need a partner at all. The BBC could just make the show themselves, like they did for the majority of the modern era. In fact, Russell T Davies did also comment on that as well. This is what he said in March 2024. If Disney collapsed tomorrow and we had to go back to making Doctor Who on a normal BBC budget, you know what? We'd all rally round and make it. And suddenly the stories would become claustrophobic ghost stories. You know what? I love the Quarries. I had no qualms with the Quarries. Bring back the Quarries. Anyone else think the word quarry sounds weird now? I don't think I can even say quarry. Quarry. That's a very hard word to say. Anywho, the thing is, right, Doctor Who is far too valuable to the BBC. They're not just going to let it end without a fight. It is their most popular drama with young audiences, and that's very, very important. And then you've got the Whoniverse, which is really helping to drive the growth of iPlayer, which is what the BBC is aiming to do. They want iPlayer to be known as another streaming service like Netflix's or Disney Plus's, as opposed to just being the catch-up service that it used to be. Which is one of the reasons why we had the midnight screenings, the midnight releases of season 1. So overall, if we were to sum it all up, here's what I think is happening. Russell, the BBC and Bad Wolf want to make season 3, but they're waiting on a green light from Disney. Disney wasn't quite satisfied with the response to season 1, which is why they're waiting until season 2 airs to make a decision, but with or without Disney, Doctor Who will continue. And to be honest with you, I don't think we need this big Disney budget to make good Doctor Who. I have never watched Doctor Who in my entire childhood and growing up that was made entirely on a BBC budget and thought, this is awful. Now, you might look back at it now and say, oh, the CGI is pretty hokey. But that's probably more to do with the progression of visual effects as opposed to the budget, to a degree. And I think part of what makes Doctor Who so special is that kind of low budget feel. It never felt low budget. It might have been low budget behind the scenes maybe, you know, they might have sat there with kind of crusty sandwiches or something, I don't know. But to me, the important thing is the story. And as long as you're telling a good story and you've got good actors, I don't care if you're in a quarry, and I don't care if you're using some old warehouse, or it's set in a school, or it's set on a street. I don't need you to be in this huge stage using this state-of-the-art, high-tech, ridiculously expensive equipment. Tell a good story. Think Boom, for example. If you'd have filmed that in a quarry with a green screen and just replaced the green screen with some planets and whatever, it still would have been a great episode because the story was good. That's just my take. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. I would not be mad if the BBC ended up taking control and being the sole budgeters for Doctor Who. Remember to be kind and respectful. People might have differing views. That is okay. We do not need to start spreading hate towards each other. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of River Song herself, goodbye, sweeties.